Everyone, good morning again. So today I have Reeju with me, the co-founder of Cashfree, and what we are going to talk largely today about is onboarding journeys, right? So onboarding has been a very critical element, right? So I mean, of course, you have been very pioneered into it. Cashfree has been always been focused on that. Just giving some of the experiences, like if the onboarding is properly done, the customer's trust or his sort of engagement is always better, right? Because what we always understand or keep in mind is the first experience, right? So from that perspective, how do you see this onboarding journeys are been improvised, and what does Cashfree is going to look into it? Maybe two bits on that along with your introduction.
Yeah. So hi, I'm Reeju. I am one of the founders of Cashfree Payments. And we used to be primarily a payment aggregator, still are, right? So we help businesses accept payments. And we are a licensed payment aggregator by the RBI. We also hold a cross-border payment aggregator license and also a PPI license. But I think today we are discussing, KYC, onboarding, and powered by AI, right? So that's like an interesting story also, right? How we ended up, right? So while we were doing payments, we had this page, called bank account verification. And it was just up there, and we said, if people want to sign up, fine. And what started happening was, there was a lot of search intent on search engines like Google, and it consistently used to rank, very high. This is 5, 6, 7 years back, and what we realized is, people started signing up there. And really big companies started to sign up there, publicly listed companies, regulated entities. Like for instance, someone like Swift, which is the global transfer network, kind of started up, and started using there. So and then they would, many of these guys would start using payments, but first a lot of them were, signing up on this page, bank account verification. And then we built a couple of similar pages, PAN verification, and let's say Aadhaar KYC, Aadhaar APIs, and similar, right? So there was a search intent, and people were signing up, good leads were signing up, and that's how we figured out. We talked to these users, and we figured, while we're doing payments, I think this is a space where people need something, and that's how our journey, I think, into this began, right? And then from there we grew, and we launched Secure ID earlier in this year. Right. So I think where it started, the idea, the principle, I think remains, I think, to minimize the number of user inputs. So a lot of our learnings, I think, come from our own journey. So it's kind of an AWS moment for us, because we kind of have had to build our own onboarding flows. We've had to deal with fraud as a regulated entity. I think, we might be aware that we also went through an embargo, right? And I think the specific instructions during the embargo from the regulator was to improve our onboarding and monitoring processes. So that's when we really dug deep, and to understand what the regulations meant. How could we kind of, make sure that the onboarding is smooth? By smooth, I mean, so principles always remain. You minimize the number of user inputs, try to gain as much as possible info from that. Try to keep the automation as high as possible, so that your end KYC/onboarding verification is very fast. Right, and you are able to also detect bad actors and also identify good actors at the same time. So that's the rough principles that we try to follow, and we did that for our payments business, right? And a lot of the tools we built inside that, and then we used our knowledge of these people, businesses who were talking to us, and that's how we came here, right? So that's why we are Cashfree Payments, and we do one of the leading payment players in the country. We're also kind of very excited by this space of onboarding AI. And this is a really great time here, because on one hand you have these innovations or advancements in AI, machine learning, which make it really easy to do things which probably were much harder earlier. Maybe we'll discuss more about that. On one hand, and then you have the problem of digitization, you have the problem of fraud, which is there on the second hand, and then on the third side you have the regulator who is really pushing, they're enforcing the book when it comes to the regulations. And they are very explicitly writing, like use AI-based technologies when you're, doing credit underwriting, when you're doing onboarding. So they're very encouraging and open about that. So like it's a great time, I think, very exciting time. Yeah, so I think that's how we are here, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. But I think it's very logical from the payments to onboarding, because in the payments now, largely what I was also speaking about it a few minutes back is the experience, which is something which
Sure.
that matters, right?
Yeah.
So that is where the space into. So I think that would be really exciting to have see that journey of Cashfree.
Yeah.
But I think there was one more point from the journey's perspective, right? So when we talk about the journey, largely the problem happens where there are drop-offs, and there are journeys where these drop-offs have not been handled altogether in a well manner. So I start the journey, I go in, I mean, I complete few steps. So first thing, I may not know how many steps I have to do, right? And then if it drops off, I don't know where I'm going to land into and what next needs to be done. So how does Cashfree looks about it in the new era?
Yeah. So as I said, one of the key elements is to minimize the number of user inputs. So from lesser parameters, like let's say just a phone number, how much can you pre-fill, right? I think you can fetch a significant amount of information about the user with their consent when they're onboarding, from data sources. So one of the major reasons of drop-off would be a large number of forms that are not required. Right. Second would be, this is where maybe AI would come in, right? Like you might be asking for something, let's say that the user does not have, right? Many times when we go, let's say to financial inclusion, rural areas, let's say a farmer, right? A farmer may not have, be able to upload or authenticate their Aadhaar, but they might have like a passbook, right? They may not be on the account aggregator, but they might have a passbook, they might have a ration card, right? So you have to be compatible and be very inclusive in being able to accept all these documents. Let's say as a lender, you want to underwrite, right? You would want to accept these really vast array of items, right? Like a passbook, it would be your bills, invoices, your khata, that you maintain on an app, right? Your list of UPI transactions, which is not standard data, that which is in a structured format. So can you kind of allow these? And if you're not accepting that, maybe someone can drop off, right? So, can you allow that? Can you kind of get information out of whatever the user is uploading, and get make sense out of that, right? Not just verifying that this is an Aadhaar, but actually figuring out, more details from things. Let's say, is this Aadhaar linked to this PAN or not, right? From the passbook, are you able to get insight similar to what you would get from an account aggregator pull, right? So those are the kind of things. From the invoices, which are, let's say, paper slips, right? Can you get an idea of the cash flow of the user or not, right? So those are some of the things that are much easier and possible now. It's not merely reading the document, but actually getting insights from the document, which will help, let's say, underwrite the user, right? And which is a part of the onboarding process. So yeah, so those are some of the examples, right, that you can kind of do to minimize the drop-offs. And lastly, right, does it work, some of the more optimization related things, like does it work in a low internet connectivity, right? If my data, like if my upload is 5 MB, does it work or not? Does it work in a low internet area or not, right? So those are, some of the things that you can kind of, that we are kind of working on, and we try to ensure that we take the minimum inputs from the user, and at the same time, from things like physical data, document uploads, we're able to get a lot of insights at the same time. Yeah.
Sure. So when we talk, you mentioned about the rural areas as well as the inclusion segment, right? It draws to the multiple customer segments which are there, right? And in today's world, the onboarding journeys which are simplified are largely the ones which are personalized journeys. So how do you think this AI and India stack is going to help to build such journeys?
Yeah, so I think, as I was saying, right, so I think you would be, are you able to kind of, so maybe I'll share about what we did as a company, right? I think a part of it is definitely what I discussed, that can you kind of allow these unstructured data to be accepted. So one of the things we did when we were really revamping our onboarding process was What we wanted to keep is we wanted it to be compliant, but at the same time we wanted to ensure someone can come and sign up on the platform and get transacting in the same day, right? We wanted it to be very fast, and that would mean we wanted to keep it very highly automated. And that meant being able to, for instance, intelligently figure is if the name on the Aadhaar matches the name on the bank account and that matches the name on the GST or not, right? That sounds like a trivial problem, but once you go down to build it, right? So for instance, like maybe not a lot in North India, but in South India you would have, let's say, I would have a PAN card called R Datta, whereas my bank account might be Reeju Datta, right? So this is not an exact match. So you need some kind of nuances in your name match algorithms, right? So we have kind of built it. We have our configuration, like I think we use 0.8 as the score, and we have kind of given it out to the market and to the ecosystem for free, right? So a lot of what we are discussing, we have kind of given it out for free because that's we feel that it's a value add and everyone should have it, right? So we don't charge for it, right? So yeah, so that is an idea. So while it might seem simple, name match is simple, but it is something every fintech has to do every day, right? And if that is not spot on, I think it will create a situation where you'll have false positives, right? People with valid documents will get rejected, right? So it's very, very important to kind of get that very small thing bang on, right? So we really spent a lot of time on, let's say, making sure our name match really worked. And it sounds simple, but actually there are a lot of genuine use cases that, get stuck there. So, and I think we saw the results. I think what we were able to get to is, I think out of all the businesses that sign up, I think around 75% we were actually able to automatically validate, assign the right MCCs, read their websites, figure out if this phone number is genuine or not related to a blacklist. And we were able to kind of onboard 75% of people who sign up, within the same day. And that's like one of the fastest onboarding process, the fastest, I would say, in the industry. And it went through an RBI audit, right? And so far so good, right? So that's the good part. I think while we keep saying about compliance, I think we can still make sure that the process remains fast and automated. So that is where I think AI comes in. So name match is one simple thing that I mentioned, right? There are a document is there. Face match is another one, right? Where you actually look at an Aadhaar and then you match it, whether if that's the same person or not. Not very relevant to our case, but for a lender, I think those are some of the things that I think we can look at.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So maybe you mentioned about the fraud, right? Fraud part. So any insights you would want to share from the perspective, like how AI is going to help on that side?
Sure. Yeah, so I think again, let's take the example of a lender, right? Typically, a lender would have issues like you might have some of the challenging ones that we see is, Aadhaar. It might be an Aadhaar that is, let's say, a fake Aadhaar, right? It could be an like a Photoshop generated Aadhaar. It could be a Photoshop generated PAN. It could be Aadhaar and PAN that are not linked to each other. You could have a passbook or an account statement that is tampered with, right? So these days fraudsters are pretty smart. So how do you smartly, I think with AI you can detect actually like these deep fakes. You can actually detect whether it's a tampered document, whether it's an Aadhaar PAN that is fake, right, from looking by just scanning the image. And that's important because and now we are at a stage where you can do it better than agent, because at scale I think you have this team of onboarding agents of 100 people who would have, let's say, a policy, and it's very subjective to personal judgments, right? And people often miss, and we have seen this, that happens. So I think it's much more comfortable for an entity to kind of give this now, and give this to an AI to, kind of read and detect fakes, because even today an agent can get fooled. Like if we were to show you a fake and you can come to our booth for the demo, right? We'll show you fake instances and we'll show you genuine instances, and it's not very trivial to figure out, right? So when you go to an agent who is, let's say, new on the job, who has barely looked at, 100 samples, they'll miss, right? So you want a, uniform standard experience, and for that you would want to automate this process, right? And beyond that, I think even things like another thing that would happen is people applying for multiple loans, right? Or applying for the same person applying at for loans at different lenders or within the same lender also, right? So how do you kind of figure out those duplicates, right? So like let's say you look at their device IDs, you look look at their payment information, so you kind of ingest as many data parameters as you can, and you try to use machine learning to figure out what are the anomalies, right? So is the same person trying to kind of apply for a loan from different devices, right? Is the same device kind of trying to apply for loans from different identities, right? Which is typically what happens in a mule, right? So those kind of patterns, I think, are much easier to kind of find out now, and we're able to stop, the whatever the bad actors are.
No, sure. Maybe one of the thing what you talked about, right, where the name matching algorithm, be it the service for that, or be it on this side. So this is something which is industry will have to pick up now, right? And with the AI, of course, because manual is, I mean, kitna hi army laga loge, right?
Yeah.
That would be difficult part. So what are the strategies industry should adopt in order to leverage these services altogether from the AI perspective and for the onboarding perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I would say you can sign up with us. I mean, so essentially, yeah. So I think one of the things is that you can just go to our website, sign up, and start using within a day, right? We've tried to make it very easy, and as I'm saying, we have made it free also, right? So something like a document, reading with AI is free. We will just announce it. Name match would be free. A face match would be free. So these are some of the things. So the idea is to, again, to give a principle on how they should use, or what the principle we follow is, you kind of gather maximum details from the minimum info of the user. Let's say from a phone number, how much can you pre-fill, for a user, and then you kind of try to automate things like name match, trying to intelligently verify the documents and get insights out of them. So we've created these templates that I think can be accessed for different use cases. So I think while people can build their own, we are happy to help, and I think we try to give it out as much as possible.
That's interesting, because as you are mentioning, this is an ecosystem problem, right? And it is somebody who, I mean, if Cashfree is solving for all, the contribution of everybody will be also be there. So that's a pretty good thing. Maybe one last question I would like to ask about it is like, how largely you see this onboarding journeys through AI will get, I mean, for what horizon you are looking at for this transformation altogether?
Yeah, so I think there are a few interesting points like going ahead, and a lot of scope. I think as the technology keeps improving, I think we will see even better rates, like in terms of false positives. I think will go down even further. I think today also we are significantly better than a human agent. That's the stage we've reached, but I think we're going to improve even further. A few interesting developments. I think recently we read about the CKYC register, and I think the ULI from the RBI is also picking up. So I think a lot of these verifications will probably be standardized and also have AI incorporated into them, right? From what we read. Of course, the execution of that remains to be seen. But once that also happens, I think it's going to solve part of the problem. You will still need like a fintech or a regulated entity will still need a partner to kind of orchestrate the entire journey. Like for instance, is the person behind the screen actually the one who is still giving the document, actually collecting the consent in a particular format? I don't mean the data consent, I mean consent to use the service, avail a loan, or get into an agreement with the user, right? So I think that part of the journey, trying to fetch, gather information from the data sources that the user provides, detecting frauds from deepfakes, right? So those are some of the problems that will remain, right? Even though I think ULI and CKYC registers are very interesting developments to look out for. So that is one part of the future, and then I think huge scope, right? Like just for, let's say, document reading, right? Offline document reading, you have the entire land records process, right? So I'm coming from Bangalore, right? In Bangalore, the entire registration of houses, that process is stopped. I think it's called e-khata, because the land records have to be manually written, in a register. They can't, read the OCR and, figure out who the actual owner of this property is, right? That's done manually. So the entire process, you can read it about in the newspaper, that is stopped. Right? It takes delays, like it's delayed by a long time, right? And it's very hard for, let's say, for an NRI, you probably have to come down to Bangalore to get it done. So those kind of problems are there. So it's a huge scope, right? You can just upload a document and get insights out of that. So yeah, a lot of scope and a lot of excitement, I guess. And we'll see, as we go along, I guess.
Sure. Looking forward for that as well. So thank you, Reeju.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here and sharing these insights. We wish you will all the very best for your this vision on AI side, and congratulations once again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We would love to appreciate you by presenting a memento. So there we go.